Hello, adventurers. On today's episode, we're going to finish up with part 2 of the worst DM advice article. Great little article we found over on the DMlayer.com. Check out episode 77 to see the first half of that. Before we get into that, some quick housekeeping. I want to give a huge thank you to a couple people who left some reviews for us, all 5 stars, of course. Lance Criminal Galen says, great RPG podcast. This is a great podcast to get ideas and hear entertaining stories about D&D and some other games. I'd love to hear more about the 90s game Dark Conspiracy. Now, I read this to Jim, and he started laughing. He's like, that game is so 90s, and I really hope that he gets into this just for you. And Paco Bracken says, love it. Please do a director's cut of classic stories. I love your content. Thank you for all your work. You are not the first person to ask us to do the director's cut of Old Man Henderson. So, of course, now we have to do it. We have to now. Thanks so much to both of you and everyone else who's left us a review. If you're still listening to us, shoot us an email to curmudgeonsandddragonspod@gmail.com. Give a screenshot of the review that you left. I've got some swag bags we're going to be sending out soon. And I know there's some people who were expecting swag bags and haven't seen them yet. That's because I'm getting new stuff to put in the swag bags first. I don't want to send you a half-ass swag bag. No one wants a half-ass swag bag. We're going to send some good swag bags over. So curmudgeonsandddragonspod@gmail.com. Let us know that you left the review. And if you haven't left the review yet and you want one of these swag bags, go ahead and leave a review right now. A 5-star review gets you a swag bag. We'll send it over to you. Also, you'll realize that the show is releasing on a Monday now. Shook up the schedule a little bit. Rather than doing our Wednesday, Friday releases, we're now going to do Monday, Friday releases, Monday for the full episodes and Fridays for RPG horror stories. This not only spreads out the show a little bit more, so they're not just on top of each other, but it also makes my editing a lot easier and we can get shows out on time with show notes, etc., etc. The link to today's article is in the show notes if you want to read along. Otherwise, let's make everybody worse DMs and give some bad DM advice. Everybody roll initiative.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Hello, adventurers. Welcome to Curmudgeons and Dragons. My name is Jason Portizo. Today, I am joined by Ms. Josey Diaz.
Hey there, hi there, ho there.
And Jim Crocker.
Good morning, everyone.
Greg's having some tech problems, so he's going to come back next time when his computer is not literally on fire.
Melting down. Yeah.
Right. A little fire.
I think I can smell
handle,
the smoke from here, actually.
That's true. That toast smell that you have all the time. That's actually Greg's
computer.
That's not
a stroke?
No, it's Greg's computer.
Oh, fuck, no wonder the NHS hates me so much.
Yeah, no, I have great news for you.
Greg's computer having a stroke.
You've come down the bad case of the Greg's computers. So today's episode we're going back to finish up one that we had started before. A couple weeks ago, we had done the top 15 worst DM advice ever. This is an article from the DMlayer.com. And today we're going to do part 2, finish up numbers 9 through 15. So
it's good because I need a lot of advice before I can be a bad DM.
Well, then, Jim,
what,
you're in luck.
We're going to give it to you, boy.
I got good news for you, Jim.
Excellent.
We're going to make you as bad as we possibly can today.
I think this first
Josey,
one that we're going to read is going to be perfect for you.
Josey, we're going to make you even worse.
Perfect.
And myself even worse. Episode 77 was part 1 of this. So go check out curmudgeonsanddragons.com/77. That'll bring you right to the page there. Or you can use your favorite podcasting app and just look for episode 77. So today we're going to start at number 9, work our way through the end of this thing. Yeah, you guys ready to do this?
Yeah, hit it.
Born ready.
Let's go be bad DMs. Number 9, don't interfere with players who cheat. If that's how they have fun, who are you to say otherwise? He's got some really good examples in the article here. It says, some players are overly aggressive and like to punch their fellow players in the face when they don't get their way. If that's fun for them and makes them feel better, who are you to say otherwise?
Probably the person that's getting punched. I am the one that will say otherwise.
It's an obvious logical extreme, but
right.
Like even if, fudging dice and whatever, because that's not just like, that doesn't just affect you, right? It's the whole the whole game gets messed up if you're letting people do that. So you can't do that. Yeah.
So like dice fudging is an obvious one. What other like brazen cheating have you seen at your tables?
Oh, absolutely. People willfully misinterpreting the way their class abilities work.
I was going to say the
a
same
lot
thing
of
with
times we'll see
spells.
something like
the old generous read.
Yes, exactly. The old generous read. Yes, the exceedingly generous read. And like people that know, like effects aren't supposed to stack, but they stack them anyway. Things like this. I'm 3rd level and I can move 280 feet in a round. Well, let's break that down. And no. Here's 3 ways that's not true. That where you doubled and tripled when you shouldn't have, and all that kind of stuff.
The other thing about, if it makes it fun for that person, who are you to say otherwise? Literally everybody else at the table. Why are you making sure one person who is playing incorrectly is the one having the most fun? Arguably, if you're going to let that let's say you're going to let that person cheat, but you're going to let them know that and just fuck with their character. Like, just be a dick about it. That's a good DM tip. If you see somebody cheating, fuck their day up.
Is it though?
I think so. Which is, again, why nobody lets me DM.
It's true.
Josey wrote this article. Wow.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy, right? And it's based off of personal experience.
And there's, there's cheating and there's cheating. But, you address it. You say that's not going to fly. You don't need to get any, you don't need to start a fight over it, but you do need to nip it in the bud when you see it, whether it's, regardless of how intentional it may have been, because there's a continuum there. Why are you cheating at a
collaborative game? This is a co-op.
Well, there's a continuum there from honest mistake to total dick. And wherever somebody falls on that, you got to cut them off and play the game, at least as everybody agrees it should be played. That doesn't mean everything needs to be rules as written.
Yeah, if you're cheating together, that's different.
Yes, exactly. Everybody cheating the same way is what we call a house rule.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Number 10, ignore the rules. Do whatever you want as the dungeon master.
Why play the game then?
Rule of cool, baby.
Fucking go outside and play pretend with your friends. Go in the pool, play mermaids with your buddies.
That sounds great, actually.
What color was your tail, Jason?
Black, obviously. That was
boring.
Goth mermaid.
Mine was orange.
Obviously.
Yeah, naturally. Jim, what color was your mermaid tail? You can tell
mermaid
us.
Tail? I did not have a mermaid tail.
Oh.
I was not a mermaid.
Jim doesn't play house rules.
I don't play house rules. That's right. Yet, like
you never went swimming with your cousins and you guys were like, let's play mermaids.
Not really. No, we would see, because like when we went swimming, we would play like Aquaman and Submariner and stuff like that. Like we were underwater superheroes. So we could pretend that we could swim at 100 miles an hour and stuff like that when we're under the water. So
yeah.
Less mermaids and more superheroes.
That's fine. So, but if you want to ignore the rules, go do that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So he says in the article, I'll agree on the premise that the DM has the authority and the right to change the rules when it makes sense to do so. However, just doing whatever you want whenever, just throwing the rules completely out the window is pretty dumb. There's absolutely places for house rules. There's even almost, I don't want to say universally agreed on house rules, but there's really common house rules that I've heard of from multiple tables, and a couple that I've adopted at my tables, like the bonus action potion rule is a pretty common one. I see that a lot.
Like crits on skill checks and stuff like that. That's that you see a lot of people using.
A mutual understanding of what the rules are.
Different rules on crits. A lot of players, players who are not brand new coming to my table, they'll straight up ask me, "What are your crit rules?"
Oh, okay, sure, yep. Mm-hmm.
And we do a mini episode on stuff like that. On a couple different versions of crit rules.
I love mini-sodes. They're so little.
Yeah, the important thing here is a thing that I was going to say, but that he says in the response is, your players need a shared understanding of how the game works.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to make changes, you tell everybody what those changes are, or if there's a particular, and that's not just making house rules, but that's if there's a place where you're just going to hand wave it, you're like if you decide that rolling dice to climb walls is boring and you're just going to hand wave that and just let people climb as they need to, then you got to tell the rogues that so they're not putting a pile of points into it, to be good at it when it turns out they don't actually need to invest anything in it, like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Something like, to speed the game up for this particular campaign, I'm treating these things like this. And this
a lot of people use alternate initiative systems, and those can mess with people that have invested in, going first and stuff like that. So,
sure.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, you got to let people know. Yep.
I see a lot of hand waving with like long travel.
Sure.
Is one that my DM does a lot. We do a lot of it's like a 3 days ride, and we'll basically hammer out a couple of random encounter rolls and okay, it's 3 days later now.
Yeah, and the ranger's sitting there, dude.
We don't have a ranger.
What?
Okay, I was just gonna say.
Exactly.
we don't have a ranger, so it's okay.
Yeah, and that's those are the kinds of things you got to pay attention to. Like if you don't have a character that's specialized in a particular thing, and so it's not interesting for somebody to be great at it, then you can just we're just going to kind of just skate over that. Yeah.
Yep. So let's be a lesson. If you play a ranger, you're making everyone do more stuff.
Crocker.
Come on now. Rangers are awesome. Stop that. So Jason, this prompts the question, if ignoring the rules and doing whatever you want as the dungeon master is a terrible idea, the dungeon master should know all the rules, every single one of them, right?
That's rule 11. Yeah, absolutely. Dungeon master has to know everything.
Yeah, you have to have an encyclopedic brain to be a DM.
That 300-page book you bought, you have to read all of it.
Take notes on it.
And be able to quote scripture and what page and paragraph everything is on.
I'm sorry, you said that 300-page book, there's not 3 core rule books for D&D that you need to know every page.
I'm just talking about the one that you bought, not the one that you downloaded the PDF for.
Well, you got to know all the player rules, right? And you got to know all the DM stuff. You got to know I'm sorry. And this is a tangent, maybe a thing we talked about, but the 5e DM guide is not a good book. It is not well laid out. It is not easy to follow. It is a slog to read through that thing. It is difficult. And of course you got to know all the stats for all the monsters.
So maybe that one you do actually highlight and annotate.
I generally don't do highlighter in it, but what I will do is put those little tabs that go on the pages, right? So that you can find stuff inside the book. That's a thing I'll
the little post-it note things, little flags.
Yes. Yeah.
I got a bunch of flags in a few of my books. Better than dog-earing a page and ruining it like a savage.
Don't ascribe to that philosophy.
But joking aside, I do think this is a thing that can keep people from starting to DM. And in DM Academy, I'll see a lot of that. I'll see, I'm not really 100% confident on all the rules. Am I ready to be a DM? And it's
yeah, bro.
You are.
You've got,
it's like, dude,
you've been
DMing for 15 years. Get over it.
Exactly. Well, and if you're willing to do it and step up, do it and step up, because unless your friends are absolute dicks, the people in the game with you want you to succeed and will help you succeed. And maybe even if they are, they still want to have fun. They selfishly want to have fun themselves. Sure. So
how dare they?
So they'll join in to help you out on that. No, that's have the books at the table with you. Be willing to make rulings on the fly that then at the end of the game, you look it up and say, oh, well, maybe we didn't do that right. Next, from here on out, we know what's going on with that. But chances are, even in a 20 level campaign, you're only ever going to use a third of what's in all those books. So there's no reason
third?
Maybe across 20 levels, it could happen.
Sure.
But
my thought is that any of those books, I was going to say the DMG, but really, it's really all of them. They are reference textbooks and not novels. They're not meant to be read cover to cover. They're meant to, you read a couple of sections to get what you need, and the rest is indexed reference. If you need a specific rule, if some weird corner case comes up, hey guys, take 5, get me a beer, and by the time you come back, I'll figure this out.
Exactly. Yeah. Calling for those breaks.
Yeah. You're the judge. You can call a recess,
or you just make the judgment call, make the executive decision. But this is how we're doing it now. And, we'll check this out later if it's not catastrophic.
And the other thing I've found is that if you know the basics of it, in game design terms, D&D is called an exception-based system, right? Because there's the core rules are very basic. It's roll a d20, add or subtract a number, against a target number, right? And then everything else is just messing with that, tweaking that somehow.
Sure.
And whatever, there's movement and all that kind of stuff and how you handle like where people are and stuff. But basically everything is ways to deal with that and what happens after that. And as long as you kind of understand that and you have grasped that intuitively, even if something comes up that you've never encountered before, if you have a pretty good grasp of everything that's gone on so far, you can usually make a pretty decent ruling that makes intuitive sense, even if it might not be exactly right based on rules as written, as long as you're just, willing to roll with it. So.
Sounds like a no, but I'll allow it moment. Sounds like a Greg moment.
And that can happen. Yeah.
But not knowing everything about how to DM or even like everything about the rules should not be a roadblock to you DMing. Not only your first session, but your 50th session. It's like, gee, you've been DMing for how long?
I've been DMing for 35 years.
Do you feel like you know everything?
Oh, Christ, no. I mean, I've been, and not least of which because in that 35 years, there's been like 8 editions of D&D.
All right, fair.
And so every time a new one comes out, I have an understanding of how D&D works kind of conceptually as a game. But, what did they do to grapple rules this time? I don't know. Let's find out.
True.
But I'm not going to bother looking it up.
Granular stuff, yeah.
Exactly. I'm not going to bother looking it up until someone says, you know what, I think I'd like to try and grapple him. And that's when I go, fuck, okay, let me flip through and find out how that works. So,
I mentioned before, I had a character based on grappling. So I showed up to this. I showed up to the session with the player's handbook, with with the post-it notes on the page, and be like, "Hey, listen, here's my intention. Here's how the rules work. Is this cool?"
And if you have good players, that's another aspect of this, which is, like when you do your session 0 or your setup or whatever, your expectations are to say to the players, "Look, I don't know this whole subset of the rules. Your job is to understand how it works. And then when we come to the game, you do your thing and it'll be cool because you know it. And I'll just, roll with the punches as we go." So.
And that DM did exactly what a good DM would. He looked at it, thought about it for 2 seconds. He's like, yeah, I can make that work. This is the character you want to play. Cool. Number 12. And, I think this is good, bad advice. Number 12.
Yes.
A dungeon master must use special voices.
But why,
I love that they use
Jason? Why must you use the special voices?
With scare quotes around special voices.
Yeah,
right. Fucking live your best life. You don't have to. Not everybody's a professional voice actor. Not everybody can do different accents or like modulate different voice types.
We are in a very spoiled time right now where we have infinite access to lots and lots of very, very, very good DMs and players that we can watch and listen to anytime we want. Critical Role is, as much good as it did for the game, I understand. I don't agree, but I understand when people say Critical Role has hurt the game too by being too good at it. It makes it harder for other people to get into it because your expectations are too high.
Critical Role is not gaming. Critical Role is a television show that uses gaming as its framing device.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And these players are literally professional voice actors. I remember I tried getting into it. There's just way too much for me to catch up on. But I remember the first couple episodes, one of their players couldn't be there because she was away accepting a BAFTA award for her voice acting work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is literally, they're professional voice actors, and your friends who probably work in, whatever jobs they do, anything from the high schoolers who are working at Chick-fil-A up to my friends who are working in concerts and stuff like that. We are not professional voice actors.
So at the end of the day, it's if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. It's just flavor.
For what it's worth, I have a BFA in theater and have taken dialect classes, like multiple dialect classes.
Good shit.
And I use it very, very sparingly. And mostly, if I'm going to do a special voice, I won't try and do an accent. I won't do all dwarves are Scottish, kind of thing like that. I might raise or lower my voice, slow the speed of, that I'm delivering stuff or speed it up a little. But I think one of the important things here is you don't even need to speak in the first person ever if you don't want to as the DM. You can just say, they say this.
Oh, yeah.
They
tell you that
you
this
say,
is not a good idea.
Exactly. They're really angry when they tell you, they're really angry when they berate you about having killed that guard at the gate instead of just, presenting your credentials so that you could be let in normally. You don't even have to speak in the voice of your characters if you don't want to, or you're not comfortable doing that. And you can run a great game that way.
You can even skip the dialogue part and just explain what they're saying. I think that's what you're just trying to say.
For sure.
I've had a couple where like they blindsided me with with the questions they were asking, and I knew what the answers were, but I didn't flesh the character out enough to have this. These are one shots. The characters weren't fleshed out enough for me to like have a personality for them. I just had like this particular dwarf. He just had like a slightly lower voice and very soft. And so like everything was like this. And like they asked like a pretty complicated question with like a lot of plot stuff in it.
ASMR dwarf.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
And like
so rather than making up a whole monologue with a ton of plot points, it's like, okay, he explains to you these bullet points.
Yeah, totally legit.
That's it.
Well, this rule feels to me like replace special voices. I mean, like you must create concept art for your character. Like if somebody comes in and they're like,
sure.
I've drawn my character out for you, so everybody knows what it looks like with the outfit that they typically wear, the weapons that they use. Like that's cool, and it definitely adds more dimension, but it's not necessary. It's just a little. It's flavor.
That's like saying you have to design, 3D print, and paint a miniature for your character by session 1.
Yeah,
these are all above and beyond things. Of course, it's a little easier to make up a voice, but this, these are all kind of on the same level. If you do like doing voices, and you're kind of new to it, we did an episode on this way back. This is back when Justin and Jack were on the show.
Before I was on the show. Yeah.
This is episode 8, curmudgeonsanddragons.com/8. That was the voice acting exercises episode.
Oh my God, he did his Obama impression.
It was funny. So there's some funny stuff in there. The show is still very unstructured. So this is, that's us in our infancy. If you want to go check that out.
Yeah. But that specific thing also brings to mind, the doing voices thing is also potentially a minefield. Like it would be one thing, like if I were to create a character and I was doing the voice of my grandfather from Maine, my white grandfather from Maine, that, I can do that and get away with it. And it might be funny and fun.
Oh, yeah.
But like if I create a character and I'm doing my Peruvian sister-in-law, that's maybe not so good. You got to be careful about bringing, real world stereotypes and things like that into when you're doing those voices, or you end up, and Hank Azaria portraying an Indian immigrant kind of thing. So got to watch out for that sort of thing too.
Yeah. Be cool. Number 13. You must play D&D first before becoming a dungeon master.
How would anybody start playing? If your group of friends is like, oh my God, none of us have ever played D&D before. Like, let's do it. What are you going to go hunt one down? It's like with the advent of the internet, it's a lot easier. But also, I don't want to play with any old Joe Schmo. I want to play with my fucking friends.
Yeah. If your group is all learning at once, like someone has to step up and do it. It's just, buying and reading one more book. And I'm sure some in your group of friends, somebody, and just close your eyes and think of who it is. Somebody is the type to either we can either call it taking charge or wants to control the whole thing. Someone in your group does that with everything else. So just think who decided where you guys go and ate lunch the past couple of times? Maybe get them a DM guide.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky where a lot of my friends are DMs, and we can, we play in each other's games, and I learned from them and from, obviously from listening to D&D media, but you can just jump right in, just like they're jumping in playing, you can jump in DM.
Yeah. And there's a ton of, for lack of a better word, there's a ton of privilege kind of built into that assumption that like you have places around where you can go and play D&D before you learn it, and that you have groups you can find and stuff like this. And that it's not, like you said, you're, that it's not just you and some friends and you don't already know a ton of people that already play D&D. Certainly when I first did it, I mean, like back in the 70s, it was because I saw it on a shelf in a store and went, this looks really cool. And then my little brother and I just sort of muddled our way through our first couple of games and then picked up some other friends as we went along. And
you get Dungeons and Dragons in one book?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bargain.
Even with that supposedly ubiquitous as it is out there, there's not there's a ton of people going, how do I find a game? How do I find people to play with? And, best way to find a game and find people to play with is grab it, flip through it, go back to the rule that says the DM doesn't need to know everything about the game, fire it up and go. Yeah, for sure.
I'd be curious, Jim, did you play before you DM the first time?
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe. God, I mean, so with the, keeping in mind this is a long, long time ago.
Sure.
Honestly, like my very first exposure to D&D as an idea was the D&D coloring book from the 70s.
Oh, I
picked that up in a store one time and I flipped through it and I went, this looks amazing. And the next time I was in my little local, like the kind of store that doesn't exist anymore, like a tiny little independent store that had basically like an independent department store, and they had a little rack in the back that had, some D&D books and, some other early role-playing games, whatever, Villains and Vigilantes and stuff like this. And I just picked up
sounds like a ripoff.
I saved my, I took some birthday money and paper route money and bought that very first, the blue box D&D set, the Holmes Basic box set that came with Keep on the Borderlands in it. And, and like I said, it was just my brother and I just sort of muddling through it, doing a, kind of solo game. And then I picked up a couple of other friends and we just all sort of kind of, got into it organically. And this is all pre-internet and stuff like that. So it was totally just us figuring it out as we went along. We didn't know anybody else that played or was even remotely interested in any of it. So, there was no Critical Role. There was no Reddit. There was no any of that kind of stuff. So it was just figuring it out as we went. So, yeah.
I'd like to hear from, if anybody listening is not only a forever DM, but a never player. Like to see what kind of experience you have in this and what got you into it and why, I'm going to assume there's a lot of circumstance involved with your players not wanting to step up, but we'd like to hear from people who are doing that. Getting down to the end here, number 14. Don't bother making interesting NPCs or villains since they'll just die in 5 minutes anyway.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because they were so boring, I had to kill them. That's stupid. On one hand, don't spend hours pouring backstory into this minor character that might get 5 minutes of your time on the table. But don't make it a cardboard cutout of a person that you could replace with any possible thing and it would still work. That just takes you out of the immersion of the game and it just it feels icky. And
there's kind of two sides to this particular coin. They'll just die in 5 minutes.
Or maybe they fucking won't.
Well, one of them is because your players will just kill them. The PCs will just kill them in 5 minutes. And that's not good. And you kind of want to avoid that. You want to have the PCs get engaged. Or the only reason you put an NPC in is so that you can have the players get invested in them just enough that you can then kill them to, force them to seek revenge or, be sad or whatever. NPCs are what give the game life.
Yeah.
Beyond just the player characters. So yeah, no, it's important to have some that stick around so that the story means something.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's for the villains too. Okay, I don't need the backstory of every little band-aid that I'm about to kill, but I
don't want to hear your sad sob story of a monologue. I want to have our interaction and I want to go.
Yeah, save that for the real villains. All right.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to die in 5 minutes. You don't know that I'm not going to become best friends with that kobold, which I tried doing and my artificer killed him.
Yeah. And I think this is one of those other things where you can't read anyone's mind. And so I am always fascinated at which piece, what the PCs fixate on. I'll introduce 3-4 characters. I'm like, oh, this is my pièce de résistance NPC. This is the coolest NPC I've ever made. They're going to love this guy. And like, they have no interest in that guy, but they fixate on the kid that sweeps the floor in his shop, right? Something like that, and then you just got to say, okay, this is what they're into. This is going to motivate them. Everybody is excited about wanting to get to know this kid and take care of him. So boom, that's it. You've got a hook, and you've like killing those NPCs off that people get invested in is basically punishing them for engaging with your game. And that just feels like a terrible idea to me.
And also, if you're you should save that for a plot bomb. If that ever has to happen, it should feel devastating, not like, oh, you killed another one.
Yeah, it should be important, an important moment. Yeah, that you foreshadow and that makes sense and that has consequences afterwards, and that you allow the players to have to react to. And that's the other thing, is that if you're going to do that, you got to be ready for the players to react how they're going to react, and not only to react in the way that you want them to or expect them to. You have to leave room for, different reactions.
Number 15, and this is pretty directly related to number 14. Every important NPC must have a complex backstory.
No. What if I kill him?
It's the opposite extreme. I don't need to be bored to death with every single shopkeep and bandit and everyone's story about their kids, and some people can just be background characters. It's fine.
And this is the thing where you don't necessarily know going into it which NPCs are going to end up being important and not, which is to say important to the players. The players are going to decide this
which one they're
going to
be like
to us. Yeah.
That happened in one of my first campaigns where my character was introduced by I was having a romp in the hay with the farm boy because I'm a bard and that was what I wanted to do. And I was like, looks like that town's on fire and there's a dragon. I'm going to go check that out. And he just happened to follow, and he literally stayed with us for the whole campaign. He was just he was a plot point to introduce my character. He just kept rolling nat 20s for whatever reason on everything he did. So we said, fuck it, give him a name. We named him Bentley. And he was just our dude who came around places with us. We're like, he's our favorite. He's special. Protect Bentley. All costs.
This is my
Bentley. No, but that's cool. But then, for that DM, Bentley is, a hint, you can hang a lot of stories on that hook of Bentley.
Well, he ended up doing that. He ended up being like, oh, well, fuck, if he's going to be with us for the interim, well, I guess I should build him up a story about why he's doing this.
And that turns into, what I would call emergent backstory, right?
Great, yes.
You don't need that complex backstory from the jump, because you can author it and come up with it as it's needed. It might not be, it might be 4 or 5 games in before we say, I'm locked up in these manacles. Does Bentley know anything about getting somebody out of something like this? And then you can, tweak Bentley's backstory a little bit to say yes or no. And
absolutely.
And, build it up as you go. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So in a list of 15 bad DM advice, number 16
is learn to count.
You know what? But this is perfect because of the piece of advice that it is. I think they did that on purpose because of exactly the piece of advice that it is.
I was thinking because, and this is actual real advice. DMs can lie, and that's cool.
Yeah.
So I thought this was subtly be like, hey, don't, number 16, DMs always have to tell the truth. But no, they just added it in. They claim that there's 16 items in the list, but 15 sounded better for the title of the video. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. I'm not a YouTube algorithm specialist. Number 16, the more players, the better. Never turn anyone away.
That sounds stressful.
Right? The more questions, the better. We said there was going to be 15, but the 16th question really wanted to be on the list, and you can't say no to it. So,
sure, I can.
Right?
I'm upset about it. You should only ever have as many players as you can reasonably handle.
Yeah. How many you think you can juggle? I've heard of great games with only two. Some of my favorite actual play shows are 3 players. Jim, what's your sweet spot?
5. 5E means 5 is everybody. As far as I'm concerned.
I agree with
5 is the sweet spot for D&D.
5 gives you enough that you can have a well-rounded party without, like, if you have a party of 7 or 8 or 9 people, just think about in terms of combat, how long it will take.
Well, and moving the spotlight around and stuff for that. 5 to my mind, 5 is perfect because it's manageable and it works. But on any given night, if someone can't show up, you can still run for 4 without having to tweak things too badly.
Sure.
Which is when you're an adult running a game, that's a consideration. Whatever number you have, presume that some percentage of that time you're running with one fewer than that, just because that's the way the world works. But as far as I'm concerned, it's 5.
Yeah,
and you start going more than 5, and like you can do 6, but I think it is a like once you hit 7, the quality of the game starts to go down
very quickly,
exponentially. Yeah, with each player that you add. So
you want 6 players in this action economy?
Exactly.
Personally, I like 4 or 5. They feel very similar to me, and building a party with that many different characters can make up for its own weaknesses by itself. And I feel like 4 and 5 essentially feels the same to me. Once you hit 6 and up, it's a little ridiculous. And 3 requires some rebalancing and requires very carefully chosen characters.
Yeah,
and you may have to be a potion heavy, generous DM.
Or have a whatever, you have a companion to tank for them, or whatever essential role that's gonna go unfilled because you've only got the 3. But like, this is one of those things where people will say, but they're my friends. How can I say no?
If they're your friends, they'll understand.
They'll understand, and you're fucking over all your other friends by making the entire game less fun by adding that 7th friend, which is just messing with everybody. And you shouldn't do that.
So I had that come up a couple weeks ago, and here's how I fixed it. So I like 4 or 5 players. I'm still a baby DM, and I don't want to complicate things by getting more than that. And also, my table only has 6 chairs at it, and is barely big enough for 6 people as it is.
Yes.
So when I say I have a chair open for tonight, I literally have a chair open for tonight. So I had a game where 5 players were already set up. Now my fiance does not play, so she invited other friends over to play board games while we played D&D, and it was awesome. The reason for us to get our own place is to have that many games going on at once.
Sure. Yeah.
And they heard us, and they heard the story and everything, and the other friends that she invited wanted to play also. She let us in the next one. I'm like, I have like 9 people who already want to play, and I'm cycling through. So that was my Sunday night game. They came back Wednesday, and I played a game with just them.
Yeah, second table.
So second table, more games. I realize that's a lot of preparation for a DM to do, but like, is there too much gaming? When is it? I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as an absolute win.
Yes, yeah. If you've got the time and energy to run 2 tables, then run 2 tables.
But the time management is the important part. Like, don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, you don't want to burn yourself out either.
And these are all pre-made one-shot modules. So like most of all the prep work I had to do is just read it.
When we ran at the store, it was always like if we had a 7 was the worst number of players to have. Because if you could run with 6 and the table would be perfectly fun. If you got 8, boom, you split it into 4 and 4. But 7 was like, fuck, it's going to be 4 and 3. Okay, all right, we'll figure it out. So
you get some more experienced players at the 3.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was how we would do it. We would have, or like if 3 people, if there's like a trio that were there as friends, we'd go like, okay, 3 of you are going to be one table, and we'll have these other 4 people together and stuff. But it's all doable, but it gets tougher. And not only that, but like not just handling people, but if we go back up further up the list, the like knowing all the rules. If you've got 7 different character classes there, and when you've got 7, people start getting into like esoteric subclasses and all this kind of stuff. That just, multiplies your work in ways that go beyond merely I'm doing the same thing, but 7 times. So
And also, like, once you get past a certain point, it's definitely going to feel, it's just going to be human nature to leave some players out, or just concentrate way too much on like one, maybe two. This reminds me of the horror story we did with Glenn about his game that was clearly just an extension of someone else's LARP.
Yeah.
And they had like 8 or 9.
Oh, yeah.
They had 10 players. It was some like insane amount of players.
Yeah.
And
it was an unrealistic number of players.
And they just like, it became all about 2 players and everyone else is just along to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
So having too many will get you into that territory. But make 5 friends. Make exactly 5 friends, and try to alienate everybody else so you only have 5 friends and you never have to deal with that.
That's certainly my approach.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right, it's only 16. We're done, I promise. So this article can be found not only in the show notes but on the DMlayer.com. This was cool. This is I feel like I'm a worse DM now. You guys,
I'm so happy for you.
You guys feel more confident in your bad DMing skills?
So I feel like I know if I wanted to be a bad DM, I have the tools to do it now.
Good.
Yeah. So I appreciate it.
We're here to help, Jim.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Check this out and check everything else out that we have at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Share this podcast with your favorite adventurers and spread the love a little bit. Love to see some more faces and names in the comments and stuff. We've got a couple cool things coming up for the next month. And I believe this episode is the first one being released on a Monday. So the new release schedule is going to be main episodes on Mondays and horror stories on Fridays. It helps split things up a little bit, and it makes my editing schedule a lot easier too. So, but if you want to listen on Wednesday, you can still listen on Wednesday. I'm putting it out earlier. I don't care. So that's all I got. Josey, Jim, thanks so much.
You bet.
We're going to send the Geek Squad over to Greg and see if we can get him back online. But we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.